Hey, how's it going? I threw this fun video together. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, please subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, drop a like down below, maybe leave a comment, share this out, and help me spread the channel. Thanks, enjoy. Submitted for your approval. One of the craziest conversations you're ever going to see from elected officials. It's even hard to believe that these are officials elected in the United States of America, talking with somebody who claims he's a centrist. I give you Tim Pool.
There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity.
And this discussion about national divorce has been on for a long time.
It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition.
Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet Union.
And it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge.
I think it's naive to believe that the United States is always going to exist in these perfect 50 states.
This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call
Timcast IRL podcast. Republican states should leave and we should leave. But what people don't understand is that's exactly what happened in the first Civil War. It wasn't like you had all of the states fighting in Congress and then all of a sudden started shooting each other. In fact, what actually happened first was several states said, we out. And they went, okay, bye. So what would happen in the event of a national divorce? Sure, California, Illinois, New York might be like, we're going to Canada or something. But then all of a sudden you're going to have one state's got a nuclear arsenal.
Well, that sure escalated fast.
And they're going to say, we're the true government of the United States of America, and those nukes belong to us. And then one of these states, is whichever faction is in control of DC or whatever, they're going to say, no, it's ours. You can't take it. And we're going to then, relocate these weapons. And that's basically what happened with Fort Sumter.
What does he think? You're just going to dig up some silos and move nuclear weapons that are scattered throughout America?
Let me give two examples of successful secession in history that everybody knows about and everybody forgets about. Mm-hmm. And one's very specific to your case. Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet Union. And they left. There were a lot of those.
Well, I mean, the Soviet Union collapsed.
So I mean, wouldn't the Soviet Union call it a collapse if America sort of fragmented? They would look at us and say, oh, your federal government got so unwieldy.
That's true.
You overextended your Federal Reserve and your army, and you collapsed under your own weight, and now you're separate states.
This is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
That's true.
Okay, so it's been done there, but it's also been done in the United States. There's one example, and I was born in the state that seceded that nobody talks about, and it successfully seceded, West Virginia.
Where?
West Virginia.
Where?
West Virginia.
Where?
West Virginia.
June of 1861, residents of the western counties of Virginia did not wish to secede along with the rest of the state. This section of Virginia was admitted into the Union as a state of West Virginia on June 20th, 1863.
Seceded from the Confederacy.
Seceded from the Confederacy.
Mm-hmm. But to do so, they had to split a state in half. And it's been totally accepted. We go on with life as if it's normal that a state just said, we're going to separate. They didn't go back together when Virginia came back into the Union.
I think it's naive to believe that the United States is always going to exist in these perfect 50 states. Under this, under the federal government that keeps expanding and expanding and expanding. And I think it's irrational for people to think that Americans are just going to sit idly by while our federal government completely becomes tyrannical and out of control, like we've watched it do over the past year.
What federal overreach? Are you talking about a testing mandate that got struck down? Or what are you even talking about?
And no one wants violence. And I'll say again, I'm completely against a civil war, even though the media tries to say I say things like that. I never do.
But I do truly believe
that if this becomes such a broken nation, and we have one party that is trying to rule over, like the Democrats are trying to rule over Republicans to the point where they are deciding what opinion we are allowed to say, whether we can stay on social media or we have to leave because we're spreading what they claim is misinformation.
Why do they insist that the government is big tech? That somehow the Democrats that control Congress are controlling big tech?
If they get to a point where they're saying we're going to control your what you're allowed to do with your body and what you have to have injected into your body, and you have no choice or say.
Isn't that what you're doing with abortion?
They're coming to the point where they're saying this is what your children have to be taught, and parents, you have no input or say, and your children essentially belong to the state, like some people are actually saying out loud, and that's happening in the state of California and elsewhere.
That's happening in the state of California and elsewhere.
But isn't that what you're doing with CRT?
When it gets to that point, you can't just accept or think that Americans are going to accept it. That is when it's okay to start saying, you know what, just like in a marriage, I don't like the way you're treating me. You either have to change. I'm asking you to change, which is what Republicans should be saying to Democrats right now. Stop this behavior. You have to change. We all have to live here together. We should care about our country together. And if you're not, then we need to consider maybe we need to separate, and what does that look like?
Maybe we need to separate, and what does that look like?
Can we just take a quick second to laugh at the fact that she's in Georgia and Biden won Georgia, and then 2 Democrats were elected to the Senate in Georgia. So if anybody's going to say we don't like what you have to say, isn't it her and her kind that need to leave?
Yeah. That doesn't sound like you can have a peaceful divorce. I mean, you've got a husband and a wife, and the wife's saying, I want to leave, and the husband's like, don't you dare, or else. I mean, you're going to need more than just a court order. You're going to need police intervention and protections.
This is one of the craziest 1-minute segments you're going to see from Tim Pool. It's absolutely outrageous.
I will tell you what I love the most about this trope is that the city urban liberal types are convinced that they will flourish and the red states and Republicans will suffer. And I'm like, do you know how to take care of chickens, for instance? Where do you get your food from? Oh, your avocados from Mexico were shipped into your in the middle of winter, and you're having strawberries and avocado. You have strawberry yogurt with your avocados. Yeah, okay. If you don't know how to grow your own food, if you don't know how to, and it's not even about growing your own food. We learned this lesson. We planted. You probably understand this. We planted all the tomatoes at once. And that's a big mistake. Right. You plant them 1 week at a time so that the tomatoes ripen not all at once. Otherwise, you're eating 50 tomatoes all at once. We didn't know that because we're a bunch of city folks who moved out to the middle of nowhere. But the people who live in these cities, they get their food shipped in. They do jobs like writing at BuzzFeed or working for, bureaucratic firms or administrative firms or managerial firms. They're not the ones that, for the most part, are making the machine churn. So in the event there was a major divorce, I think cities are going to just implode. They're going to go nuts.
This idea of a civil war, the way they talk about it, is ridiculous. The idea that, the country could just split up, get a divorce. So many states are 50-50. What are they going to do? This is the dumbest concept in the world. I can't understand what you think is going to happen. Does he not understand that the coasts that are the coastal elites actually control all the imports? So I guess those farmers are going to farm without technology. They're just going to go back to hand picking. And then we have a real civil war because those people want to go back to owning people. You just make no sense. Now, could there be mass violence? Yes. But a civil war, the way they talk about it, it's just idiotic.
Yeah, well, Tim, what you're not factoring in is that all of those blue states have the Reddit moderators who walk dogs for 25 hours a week, and I don't know that we could stand to lose them. In all seriousness,
I find the notion of going to more of, I know you call it a republic, but more of a democratic type solution terrifying.
Less democracy?
Well, I find the notion of going to more of, I know you call it a republic, but more of a democratic type solution terrifying.
How does an elected official say they want less democracy?
Let me be fair and condemn my colleagues at the same time. I don't blame AOC for what she does. 95% of my colleagues, I don't question their motives or blame them for their behavior, even though it's wrong most of the time. I blame the people that voted for them.
I blame the people that voted for them.
He blames the voters.
I'd like to think that people elect an ideology, but in reality, they look for people they like.
They do.
What's the like about Marjorie? I think you're correct. We just can't live with these people anymore. If they like Nancy Pelosi and find something good in her, I'm just lost. I don't know how
joining my movement.
You must find
my movement.
Here's a second thing that I think everyone should think about. While we're fighting out our differences here in the United States and among one another as Americans, the biggest thing that upsets me is, as Americans, we aren't coming together as a whole and saying we can put aside our petty differences and our opinions.
So we should put aside our petty stuff and all come together, but there's nothing more petty than just separating because you don't like somebody.
What we should be standing together on is we should be standing against China. We should be standing against globalism.
But didn't you say we could never get along with more authoritarianism?
And I think it's irrational for people to think that Americans are just going to sit idly by while our federal government completely becomes tyrannical and out of control.
So if we expand the federal government, isn't that just adding authoritarianism? So if we come together to fight China by adding authoritarianism, you're going to want to leave because we added authoritarianism.
Because if you want to talk about authoritarianism and you want to talk about people that really want to rule over us, China is a direct threat to our entire existence. And let me tell you something else. China is embedded in the United States. There are politicians, people that Thomas and I work with, that are completely sold out.
Hey, kid, get out of there.
That's cool. I'm done making my video anyways.